Hi guys, welcome back to our Freedom Vlog. This is vlog number 109. Today I'm here with Tiffany Biddle, our transaction coordinator. How are you doing today?
I'm good. We're both a little sweaty.
Yep.
Trying to set up this camera and this whole system and allergies.
Definitely sick with the Canadian fires. The whole office, you just hear sneezing, coughing, sniffling, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. We're not in New York City, so
thankfully
we feel for anybody there, but our haze has just been enough.
At most, it's a slight inconvenience to the allergies.
Yes,
Yep,
yes, definitely.
Exactly. So today we're going to be talking about a purchase agreement. So my first question for you today on this vlog is, what is a purchase agreement?
Yeah, good question. So purchase agreement, it is legally binding document, and it outlines everything terms of a sale. So if you're buying a property, this is going to have, your property address, your name of the buyer, name of the seller, the legal names that you want or that are, the title is taken under, the closing date, anything that you want included in that sale is going to be in that purchase agreement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. What are the essential steps in the purchase agreement?
Yeah. So, when we're filling one out, there's different things that we're going to include. If we are filling one out for somebody buying a property from us, then we're going to include, the names of the buyer and seller, the description of the property, so the property address as well as the parcel numbers. Sometimes the parcels are split up very weird and your house may sit on 2 lots. Well, we're going to include both of those parcels because you don't want somebody else to own half of your house, right? We're going to include the purchase price. Is there any earnest money? How is that purchase? How is that price take? How is that I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but how is that purchase handled? Are you using financing? Are you using cash? And then, any payment terms like. There's going to be, sometimes there's, we don't really do this very much, but sometimes there's like seller financing or there's, something different that is handled. We typically do like a traditional loan or a traditional cash sale, but there are all of those options. We will include things like dates of inspection timelines. So on our purchase agreements, typically you're going to see 7 days to inspect. And 3 days, I believe it's 3 days to remedy. So if you're buying like a retail deal off the MLS, then you're going to be able to set that on your own. And that's something that typically gets countered back and forth. Typically you go high, like I want 20 days to inspect, and your seller's going to say you get 5.
Oh,
and that's kind of
okay.
a thing to play with there. But ours, it just says 7 days. We don't really plug that in. It's just already in that contract. Any warranties or guarantees that you might have, sometimes those might be on the actual purchase agreement. Sometimes they might be on a separate addendum. And an addendum becomes a part of that legally binding contract. So when you sign that, it becomes a part of that, and it may override something that's in the contract. I'm sure we'll get into that more in the podcast, but it can contain a purchase addendum as well. But those are kind of
Can you explain what earnest money is? And then after that, explain an addendum, just so I understand the terms.
Yeah. Yeah. So earnest money is, it's basically, in I think the simplest terms, it's what shows that you're serious about this purchase. Like anybody can sign a contract and then later on just be like, oh, you know what? I don't want it anymore. Earnest money shows the seller that you're serious. So if you're going to buy a home off the MLS, because they're all kind of the same, right? So if you're going to buy a home off the MLS, that seller wants to know that you're serious. So if you're going to say, I'm going to put $2,000 down as earnest money so that you know I'm serious about this deal, and somebody else comes in and says, I'm going to put $100 down.
Oh.
Everything else is the same. What are you going to go with? You're going to go with the one that put more money down because they're more invested in that deal.
Right. Okay.
So that's kind of how I think of earnest money. It can be refunded to you. It's typically not a non-refundable earnest money. So if you are severely in breach of contract for something, and decided to cancel it for whatever reason, then it can go to the seller, but you have to sign off on that. So title company can't just say, yep, you know what, you don't get your earnest money back and send it to the seller. Everyone has to sign off on that. Otherwise, it sits to the title company.
Right.
And eventually probably makes its way back to you, but it costs them a lot of money. So we don't usually make them do that. So it comes back to one or the other party. And seller has to sign off for it to go back to you as well. So that's just kind of how
gotcha.
Yeah. So that's what earnest money is. It's just a deposit, but it shows that you're serious about the property.
That makes sense. What about an addendum?
So an addendum is just a separate document that is kind of supplemental to the contract. So say something that happens often might be like our freedom warranty. Our contract has some legal wording in there, right? It was created by an attorney or reviewed by an attorney at least. I'm not totally sure which, so I might be wrong there. But there was an attorney involved, and there were some things that we have to put in the contracts. One of those, I believe it's a state thing, that has to say as is with no warranties. But we have a freedom warranty, right?
Right.
So we have a separate addendum that outlines that. And that is a very confusing thing. And a lot of people have questions about that. The addendum overrides something that's in the contract.
Gotcha.
So if it can't be changed in the contract, the addendum would override that. And it's just a separate document. You might get like a closing date change. Say you're going to close July 1st, and then all of a sudden you're going to close July 15th. Well, we're going to send you an addendum that says closing to be July 15th. That overrides July 1st that's in the contract.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So it stays with the contract. It lives with it forever.
Right.
Yeah.
I've been hearing that stuff every single meeting. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I never understood. That's awesome.
It's fine. When I started, I didn't understand it either. So it's all good.
Cool. My last question for you is, do you have any interesting stories you could share about a purchase agreement in the past or what we've had to go through?
So I can share an interesting story about the process. So there are many different ways to get a purchase agreement signed. To get any kind of paperwork signed, we use dotloop. It's an electronic signature service. It's fantastic in the sense that all you have to do is kind of click, 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 and click. You should read what you're clicking and signing, obviously, but you don't have to sign your name over and over and over and over again, right? So for me, that's great because I write authorized signer because I sign on behalf of the LLC.
There you go.
So I do not love writing that over and over again. I just click, click, click. So we use dotloop, and it is sometimes a headache. You should hope that when you're getting a purchase agreement from us that Carla is preparing it and not me. Carla is fantastic at catching the things that I miss. One of the things being we might share the documents to you at the same time that we share them to our listing agent. And we might put, there's one little button you can put that says that they can sign or they can edit in private. Oh. It automatically puts edit in private. So our listing agents will steal our documents all the time, not meaning to, but they're just going in and they sign it and they don't hit a button that shares it back, or they can't find it because it's very confusing. And I seriously mean that. It's very confusing to figure out where to share that back to and how to whatever. And so it'll lock everyone out of whatever that document is. So we've had that happen multiple times, and then I have to go and lock that listing agent out, reshare it to them. It's a little crazy.
It's like unintentional fraud.
Yeah, it's like unintentional fraud. Just taking our documents away from us. It can get a little crazy. So we try to be very diligent about checking that. I'm not always the best. I sent out a few purchase agreements when Carla was out on vacation last week, I believe, and I locked myself out of multiple documents because luckily I didn't lock anybody out that was signing it besides myself. Yeah. But it was frustrating on my end because I was trying to sign stuff. But it's okay. And so dotloop, it's a little bit of a headache. We found out you can't change, so you create a loop in dotloop. That's what it's called. It's just a loop where all of your documents go for that one property. Yeah. So we'll name it 123 Main Street. Yeah. Okay. Well, one time Carla created all the documents for 123 Main Street when the request was actually for 5678 South Street, right? And she shares them to me, and I said it was supposed to be for 5678 South Street, right? And she's like, So she goes through and she changes everything. She changes the address, the parcel number, the purchase price, everything. And then she just renames the loop to 5678 South Street. On our end, it looks great, right?
Yeah.
So then we share it. We share that off to the buyer. And they said, this says it's for 123 Main Street.
No.
So apparently you cannot just rename a loop. And we've been doing that for years. Not years, months probably since we started using .loop. Probably, I don't know, maybe a couple years, but we've just been renaming loops like it's no big deal. And no one's ever said anything to us until just a few weeks ago.
They're not catching
or
it.
a couple months ago, and somebody said, that's not for the right property. And I'm like, oh man. So I had to go in. I mean, it was like, I want to say it was 9 p.m. on a Friday. And I'm like, oh no. So I'm like remaking a whole loop and putting all the documents in there so I can get this out to the buyer in the corrected loop. And yeah, it's a whole thing.
I think being in real estate teaches you some patience and
Yes.
flexibility,
Flexibility
some
for
adaptability.
sure.
I have a little sign in my office that says that.
Yes.
So it's a good reminder every day to just be patient with yourself, be patient with others, because hiccups happen.
Yes.
All the time. And I think, our work culture, our work environment has made it to where we learn from our mistakes, but we're
Yeah.
not just penalized for every single time.
Well,
Everyone's really
and-
patient to work with too.
Technology, I mean, it's its own headache,
Yes.
So like when technology screws up, you just have to laugh. Like you can't,
Yeah, there's nothing you can do.
And like Carla spent all that time renaming everything for it to just be like, nope.
Oh.
It's so
Bless her heart.
It was just so funny because I was like, I told her, on Monday when we came back, like apparently we can't just rename loops like we've been doing for however long.
No.
Now we just have to recreate new loops all the time. But yeah, so technology, .loop is great, but it does fail us sometimes. And it's okay. We're just, like you said, patient, flexible.
Patient and
We adapt to
flexible.
what we need.
Oh, that describes everyone's job here.
Yes,
We
absolutely.
do our best though. But thank you so much.
Yeah.
Are any last thoughts you want to share about purchase agreements or anything like that?
Nope, I think we'll cover more on the podcast. So make sure you come back to that.
So yes, like she said, we're gonna have a podcast about this. And so a reminder, this was vlog number 109, and we always end these with Invest Smart.
Live happy.
Bye guys.
Bye.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific personal or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions and information on this show are not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss.